Hello, my name is Nuala McAllister Hart. I'm a writer and musician, and I'm delighted to be contributing to the Irish Cultural Centre's tribute to Joe Locke. 4 years ago, on the centenary of Joseph's birth, I brought out the biography of Josef Locke called Josef Locke, the People's Tenor. I believe this evening you're going to be seeing the film Hear My Song, co-scripted by Adrian Dunbar, and there's going to be a session with them afterwards. It's an absolutely wonderful film, and I'm sure you'll all love it. It's a riot of fun and colour and song and activity, and it's a marvellous film. And it's rooted in Joe's career, but it specialises in looking at one small episode in a career that spanned 40 to 50 years. It focuses on Joe's time in alleged, supposed exile in Ireland when he escaped from the taxman to, the film suggests, hideaway in Ireland. Well, while this is a wonderful romantic story that he returns to England and finds the love of his life, Miss Derry Goodness, it's not exactly the whole truth. Joe's career, as I mentioned, spans 50 years across England, Ireland, Scotland, Canada, America, where he sang all over the world and was one of the highest paid singers of the modern age. But his beginnings were very humble. And I'm going to look at do a brief resume of Joseph's career and then mention the myths versus the realities of what the film suggests. Josef Locke was born a humble Joseph McLaughlin in 19 Cregan Street in Derry in 1917. Grew up a family of 7 or 8 children. His father was a cattle dealer, and he went off, as many young men did at the time, and joined the Irish Guards, serving abroad in Egypt and the Middle East. Then he returned to Ireland to join the RUC, the Police Service of Northern Ireland as it now is, which was a normal route for people who'd been serving in the British forces abroad. But he had this hankering to be a singer. And he was singing when he was in the Irish Guards. Apparently there are broadcasts he did for the BBC overseas, but he had always this hankering to be a professional singer. So about 1941, he left the police service and auditioned to join a travelling troupe throughout Ireland with Jimmy O'Dea. Well, to cut a very long story short, he sang throughout Ireland during the war, or the emergency, as it was called in the Republic of Ireland, and then moved to England after the war, where he sang in London. But in his years in Dublin, before he had gone to England, he was an opera singer. He sang the Gaiety Theatre in Dublin with May Devitt, and he did Madame Butterfly and other sort of operas by Verdi from the operatic repertoire. He wasn't then a popular singer. But when he moved to England and Variety Hall was still going well in England, he went to London, then to Blackpool, where he made his name and did the first of about, I think, 8 seasons in Blackpool, but not the 18 or 19 seasons that he later claimed. But this does not take away from the fact that he was a big star in Blackpool, appearing beside George Formby in the 1946 season in Starry Way, and appearing in musicals every year thereafter. So in the later 1940s, he appeared in films himself, 3 films, and he had brought out several albums or records, long-playing records they're then called. He'd appeared in TV, he'd appeared in radio, and he brought out his own Josef Locke album of songs for people to play at home. And he was a well-established star, the highest paid singer, it said, in England at that time. So his career was doing very well, and he even went off to sing in America and sang in Carnegie Hall, sang in the West Coast and in the Albert Hall as well. Did countrywide tours throughout England and was earning a lot of money at that time. But then that's where the film comes in, where the taxman caught up with him for what the taxman claimed were unpaid taxes. Now, Joe disputed this, and it is said fled to Ireland. But he did go to Ireland in 1958, and he did fly overnight, or rather didn't fly, he went in the ferry boat. But when he reached Ireland, he did nothing like the film suggests, hiding away in isolation. He was actually enjoying the good life in Dublin, and he was singing all over Ireland. He bought a hotel in Ballybunion in the West Coast. He did concerts in nightclubs, theatres, wonderful time altogether. And he even sang at the closing night of the Theatre Royal in Dublin. which was a gala event. So and that was 1963. So while it suggested that he was quietly exiled in Ireland, Joe was living the life. Matter of fact, the day after he arrived in Dublin, after fleeing England, he was out betting at the races and bet on a horse called the Taxman. I can't remember now whether the Taxman won or not, but Joe certainly did have a good time in Ireland. Now, the other thing that the film suggests is that he had a love interest in England, Miss Derry Goodness. Now, there's a shred of fact in that. Joe was chosen quite often to judge beauty competitions because he had matinee idol looks, he had a great personality, he was very relaxed on stage, and he often did judge the lineups of beauty queens. Matter of fact, his second wife was a dancer, and his third wife was an actress and a model. And I should have said here that the film suggests that Joe had found the love of his life, or the love of his later years, in Miss Derry Goodness. But in fact, throughout his life, Joe had 4 wives and 8 known children, as well as a long-term partner. So his love life was quite complicated. And as these days, it was quite often spread over the front pages of newspapers. But to return to Joe, anyway, in the later 1960s, he decided he would go back to England and settle with the Taxman. Now, some have suggested it was because a singer called Mr. X was impersonating him in England, and Joe felt that Mr. X was pulling in the crowds and, more importantly, the money that Joseph was missing out on. That's one suggestion. Another suggestion is that he was getting fed up with being in Ireland, where his career was sort of a bit in the doldrums. And also, he was excluded from entering Northern Ireland, as it then was, because it was part of the British jurisdiction, and the Taxman could get him there. And in the years of his exile in Ireland, for example, his father had died, and he couldn't attend his funeral in Northern Ireland in case the authorities caught up with him. So in the later 1960s, Joe did settle his differences with the Taxman, went to court, paid back the Taxman all he owed, and went back again to England and replaced Mr. X. He had a triumphant return to Blackpool, where he did a couple more seasons there, not too many. But he discovered that in the interim, while he'd been away, that variety had died and had been replaced by newer groups like the Bachelors and the Beatles, and even another Irish singer, Donegal. So Joe's sort of career entered the doldrums again. He did sing all around England, he did make a lot of money, but his career had died away. So for the remainder of his life, from the 1970s onwards, he divided his life between England and Ireland. He married his 4th wife, Carmel, and they settled together in County Kildare, and he lived out a quiet retirement there with his wife. But occasionally went over to England and sang in a few theatres, and he brought out LPs, and his repertoire included the old favourites like Hear My Song, Violetta, and Galway Bay, and I'd Take You Back Again, Take You Home Again, Cathleen. But he also changed to sing hymns, which might suggest he was becoming a little bit religious in his later years. But there's no absolute evidence for that at all. I should mention here that he did mix throughout his career with the rich and famous. I mean, some would even say Joe was the rich and famous. But one interesting thing I discovered when I was researching the book was that in the 1970s, he actually shared a bill in the Royal Albert Hall with David Bowie. Now, I shouldn't say shared a bill, because Joseph actually topped the bill, and David Bowie was just a minor supporting artist. And there's a story that David Bowie approached Josef Locke and asked him for his autograph. And David Bowie was very shy and very meek when he asked Joe, and Joe said, "This can't be for you, is it?" And David Bowie said, "No, it is sorry." Josef Locke said, "This must be for your mother, mustn't it?" And David Bowie said, "No, it's for me." So that's an interesting part of Joseph's career. That's how well respected and how well regarded he was. Now, as I mentioned, in the 1970s, he was married to his 4th wife, Carmel, living in County Kildare, quiet life, didn't sing much anymore, and had actually bought a villa in Spain, where he spent rather a lot of time. And then, of course, Adrian Dunbar started to track him down to do to get his cooperation to do the Hear My Song film. Now, I'm sure Adrian Dunbar will fill you in on how he tracked down Joseph, and how he had to persuade him to participate in the film, and how certain aspects were out of bounds, which I must admit were not quite all out of bounds in my book. I was very lucky to get many photographs from the family, to have the cooperation of the family, but not that they had a veto over the book. I was able to write what I wanted about Joseph's life and mention the good parts as well as the bad parts, the successes as well as the relative failures. But to return to the film came out in 1991, and it provoked another renaissance in Joe's career, another comeback. And he was able to start singing again, start bringing out records again. And of course, this culminated in the premiere of the film and Joe appearing on This Is Your Life, and then in the Royal Variety performance where he sang for Princess Diana, of which there are many photographs and footages available. But he had said before the Royal Variety performance that this would be his last performance, and it was. He went on stage saying, "This is it," sang a song, left the stage, and that was Josef Locke, off the stage forever. But what a career he had. What a wonderful showman he was. What a wonderful singer he was. And how the people of Irish extraction all over the world loved Josef Locke and what he portrayed about Ireland. I'll finish off now by reading the closing sentences of my book. There are many people of Irish extraction around the world for whom Joe's singing of Irish songs and ballads continues to have a strong emotional appeal. One such lady, who had lived her entire life in Glasgow, was so moved by Joe's singing of Galway Bay that she asked for her ashes to be scattered there. She'd never been to Ireland, but Joe's singing represented for her the Ireland of her dreams and imagination. And I hope that many of you, like me, after you've seen the film, will feel that Joe's singing for you too represents Ireland of our dreams and imagination. Thank you.